We are constructed as we are placing our attention on the front of the shins, always as the weight of the body is delivered on the front of the shins, not down the back of those fleshy calves. Good morning. Good morning. How art thou? Wherever you are, whenever thou art, feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without holding our controller properly together so that we can feel better objectively. How do we feel better objectively? Well, in this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with every breath you take. I want to invite you to pretend with me that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. About 2 to 3 inches. 1 to 2 inches away from your lips that you're trying to not put out. And you're not thinking about exhaling. You're not thinking about inhaling. You're simply thinking about this candle. You're simply placing into your awareness this candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. No matter what you're doing, no matter what you were doing, no matter what you were hanging out, no matter if you're swimming underwater or you are standing above ground speaking to your best friend, I invite you to pretend that there is a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And I invite you to pretend that, you know what, your best friend over there that you're talking to right now in front of you, that they are doing the same thing. I invite you to pretend that they are also keeping into their awareness a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. Like me right here, who you're looking at right now, or your best friend that you might be looking at, or yourself in the mirror right now, whomever you might be looking at. Anybody who is in your awareness, guess what? If you are to play this game with me and feel so good from the inside out, do some body magic tricks with me, and don't take my word for it and just see how it feels for you. Everybody who becomes into your awareness You pretend that there is a candle placed in front of their lips. In their awareness, you're pretending that what they're thinking about, what is in their awareness, is that they're pretending there's a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. And as it flickers in front of their lips, they're not thinking about exhaling, and they're not thinking about inhaling this reflection of yours, this best friend of yours, or this lover of yours, or whomever you're thinking about, whomever you're looking at right now. Whomever you're focused on right now, whether it be yourself in the mirror, or your Maja, or your Faja, or your brother, or your sister, or a friend, or a lover, or maybe just a friend that you're just hanging out with. I want to place into your awareness that in their mind, there's a candle in front of their lips that they're just trying to not put out. And they're not thinking about exhaling, and they're not thinking about inhaling. But we are thinking about how the back 1/3 of our tongue is vertical, up and down, and how the tip of your tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And how does that feel for you? Don't just take my word for it, but how does that feel for you? As we're always doing some body magic tricks here every weekday morning on Pow Go On, stretching our self-awareness like a muscle. Meaning, where are you right now? Listening to Pow Go On. When is it right now? Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. 5:37 a.m. October 20th, 2021, 5:37 a.m. A Wednesday on here on Pow Go On means it is a Warfare Wednesday. Every weekday morning we are breaking down misconceptions about you and the world brought onto us by us and the world, society. But specifically here on Warfare Wednesday, we acknowledge that there is a war on you. There is a war in the world, a war for your soul. What are the sides, Herbie? Those who seek towards the individual and those who seek towards many. Are there left and rights? Is it politics? Is it the sexes? Is it the races? There's a war out there, whether we like it or not. There's a war out there and in here for your soul. What are the sides? Not nation, not race, not sex. But worldview, paradigm, mindset. That is those who live outside in versus those who live inside out. That is those who see most strength and most good for people coming from the outside world in, as in how people feel about you, versus people who see strength and the most good for people as coming from inside out. That is the value of the self, the identity of the self, regardless of how other people feel about the result of that. Valuing outside in, meaning valuing people's approval and acceptance of you, requiring the approval and acceptance of others for your strength, or living inside out, requiring the knowledge of oneself and discipline of oneself to bring about the best for oneself. The knowing of the oneself to be able to discern and understand the rest of the world, understanding the rest of the world through the self versus understanding the world through the others and the without the self. Today on Warfare Wednesday, as we discuss that war, we discuss how it's not your cashier's fault. It's not your cashier's fault. As we are experiencing this war these days, tearing us apart, Lisa, at the seams, and we can all feel it. But what we can feel better than that is how the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back, the bottom, front teeth, and how does that feel for us as we are placing awareness on the front of our shins. And remember that we do not sit on our legs. We'll be right back after this short break to speak a little bit about how it's not your cashier's fault. Let's never get angry on Pal Go On. We'll be right back. Have you ever been at your local coffee shop and been felt made awkward to participate in some kind of action that was new? Like, here, now you gotta place your credit card into this chip holder. Now you have to pay a little bit extra for this bag and be socially awkward for the next 5 seconds as you digest this new piece of information. Or, hey, now you have to put on this mask even though I don't know whether or not you are vaccinated. And you have to put on this mask before you go ahead and accept your drink. And you're not used to this information. And so you're made to feel socially awkward. And so the cashier possibly might get frustrated, or you might get frustrated, which might cause the cashier to be frustrated. And in this simulation of ours in which we're dying every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath, and as we are stretching our self-awareness every weekday morning here on Pal Go On, we might remember that we might get frustrated, and that might cause the cashier to get frustrated, and we might take it out on them because the cashier is doing whatever they can to keep their job, which might make them raise their voice or whatever, and it might make you feel weird in line. And so there is a danger of living outside in, as we always talk about on Pal Go On, and there's a danger of living outside in as receiving all of this chaotic information of the way the crowd's making you feel, of how the cashier is reacting to you, all this negative stimuli, negative information around you, that if you were living outside in, you are now feeling like your value is placed in the way these people are feeling now. You are living outside in. You are looking to the way they are feeling, these people around you. You are looking to the way they are feeling to place your value. As children do, as we all do at some point in our lives, as this is how children function, as this is how you must function for survival as a child in a family. When your mother and your father are God, they are the beings that decide how your day goes, whether you live or die, how well you are living, the quality of which your life is progressing. When you are a little baby child thing, you amazing baby child thing. It is deep rooted within you. This feeling of looking outside to verify how valuable you are on the inside. However, there's a danger in that if you are at the line in your local coffee shop, ordering food or ordering coffee in a chaotic environment, should we be feeling or being unable to live inside out and are doomed to live outside in, we're doomed to allow the feelings of these people around us and their lives dictate how valuable you feel on the inside. As we are always trying to parse out information and just try to understand the world that we are in, should we understand the world outside in, as in using this outside stimuli to validate our experience on the inside, then aren't we always at the whim to how these baristas are feeling, to how people in line are feeling, and then thusly how you make them feel, and vice versa? And isn't it just forever a cycle? How do we break that cycle of people blaming each other? Live inside out. As in, how do we even begin to understand the cashier or these people around us? How do we even begin to parse and understand this information of all this negative stimuli? Inside out. As in placing ourselves in them. Not literally and physically. You are not a ghost. But inside out. As in, why might this person be yelling? How do we relate to one another? Inside out. Don't we all have needs? We all got some needs. We all got some needs. Living outside in, aren't we doomed to take things personal? As we are using how people are feeling all around us, using a committee approach. Wink, wink. The idea of using everybody around you to decide and judge how you are feeling about this moment, rather than looking inwards to understand this moment. How might we look inwards? As in, we might remember that there's a candle in front of our lips that we're trying to not put out, and remember that the tip of our tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. How might we understand, or how might we live inside out at this, in the line of this coffee shop? Why are they yelling? Don't we all have some needs? Don't they have a job they're trying to keep? As we begin to live inside out, living inside out, as in looking towards the selves for how the selves are feeling rather than the outside in, we might remember that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. We might remember that the way the cashier is speaking to us in line might distract us from feeling that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. We might accidentally misinterpret the energy around us or the behavior of the people around us as acts of aggression onto us, as opposed to the truth, which is perhaps maybe they are distracted from the back 1/3 of their tongue feeling vertical. And so as we all have needs, are they possibly having a difficult time achieving the breath that they normally would when unstressed. And as we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath, isn't every breath so important? Isn't every breath so life and death? Living outside in is my experience because of these people around me and how they are affecting me, or are we should be living inside out, whereas this experience is happening because my own body cannot get the way that it wants to be, and thusly can't we understand the rest of the world, as everybody might just be like me, so maybe everybody is just having a hard time identifying thyself so it can feel thyself, so it can breathe better the way it normally does when it's unstressed, by knowing thy body, by knowing thyself, that body. The fact that there is a candle in front of the lips that they're trying to not put out. The fact that the back 1/3 of the tongue is vertical up and down. The fact that you want to leave your swallowing muscles alone, as we'll be right back after this short break. Talk about, it's not your cashier's fault. But only if you leave your swallowing muscles alone. We'll be right back. And pack on. We are indeed movers. We are indeed movers. I hope that you're remembering to feel the front of the shins, whether you're walking around, whether you are sitting down, and remembering that you do not sit on your legs, especially when you are walking around. You do not want to feel as though your weight is carried onto your legs. And if we deliver or place our awareness onto the front of our shins, we might have an easier or altered amount of ease. You're remembering that we do not sit on our legs and allowing the weight to be delivered down the front of the spine and into those rainbow arches. Always allowing the front of the spine to take all that weight. If you would say it with me, that the weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. Welcome back. We'll be taking another short break in a short second to allow some of the body to breathe a little bit, as we're going to get to the middle of the hump day We are remembering that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, wherever you are right now. Are you working? Are you hanging out? Are you dressing down or are you dressing up? Are you getting ready for a large engagement or are you doing some daily work today? Are you going to work today? Getting some stuff done today? Productivity today? Or is it a lazy kind of day? How is it over there? Just kicking back? Don't we wish that every day we could just kick back a little bit? Don't we all just want to feel it? Don't we all just want to feel so great from the inside out? Don't we all just want to have that feeling go with us everywhere? Don't we all just want to feel like we're on vacation even if we're just working? Don't we all feel that way? Warfare Wednesday. As the world is against us, how are they going to tear us apart? What do you mean, Herbie? What kind of war is there? A war of anger? A war of misunderstanding? A war that thrives off of dividing and conquering? How does one divide and conquer? By causing one to get angry with one another. How does one cause one to get angry with one another? By stroking one's ego. Why does one stroke one's ego to get one angry with another? When one strokes one ego, is it not easy to assume that you're correct about things, even your judgment of people? And so doesn't that encourage anger, as you assume that you know that they have the ill intentions that you have prescribed to people? And so by increasing people's feelings of intellectualism, by ego tripping people out, don't we increase anger? Because aren't people afraid of interacting with others, especially now more than ever? Aren't people afraid of possibly verifying their fears about others? And aren't people also afraid of possibly not being able to deal with the social consequences of having to confirm their biases? Confirm how they feel about others. It's scary, and it feels so good because we've learned so much, haven't we? We've gone to college. We've gone to many different schools. We've seen many things. We've traveled many places. We know so much. We're intellectuals. We know so much. We know so much through statistics. And so what we say must be true. But we love people so much, we don't want people to get the wrong idea. So we know so much from afar. Continuously knowing much more from afar. A far off dinner plate. We know so much more. And so we must know so much about the human, right? The human intention. And so what we say, what we see, must be true because we know so much more. We have all this college. We know so much. So doesn't that stoke more and more anger? We know so much. How can they be so dumb? But what we don't know is what's in their awareness, and what our ego allows us to do is apply other moments to this moment and assume that we're all paying attention to the same moment because we know so much, don't we? And so what we believe is good, what we believe to be the good thing to do, must be the only thing, right? Because we have so much knowledge. We know so much. So we must know that their awareness is on the same thing that mine is, although that might not be the case. We might think that the cashier is personally afflicting onto us because we know so much. We know that this is a consequence. But the cashier's just trying to keep their job. Following orders to keep their money. And though you might both be true, your awareness is on different things. And so both are out of integration. Both are not in the truth of what is actually happening. Both are being steeped further and further in anger. We'll be right back after this short break to talk more about how it's not the cashier's fault. But only if we remember that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Here, go on. Probably remember that our arms do not rest on our ribs so that we can achieve muscular freedom through further balance. Feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Always holding our controller properly as allowing all of these words to go in one ear and out the other. Please never take our words for it. Let's see how it feels for you. How are you? Welcome back to Pow Go On. Good morning. Stretching our self-awareness every weekday morning like a muscle. It is 6:06 a.m. on October 20th, Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. Can you believe that we're already here? Amazing. Today is a Warfare Wednesday. We're talking about how it's not your cashier's fault, as there's always a war on all of us for our soul, as we discuss on Warfare Wednesdays. Here in Pow Go On, there is a war for your soul. Today, right now, happening right now. In this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath that you take. I invite you to hold this controller properly as we move forward in this conversation by pretending that there's a candle in front of, or by remembering that everyone, every human being, every being in their imagination, they are pretending there's a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. This candle responds to their world and they're holding this candle in front of their lips, and their awareness is created by this candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. And they're not thinking about exhaling, and they're not thinking about inhaling, as the tip of their tongue wants to be anchored to the back and the bottom of their teeth. But simply in their imagination, they're pretending that there's a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. And they're not thinking about exhaling, and they're not thinking about inhaling, simply placing into their awareness that there's a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. It is not your cashier's fault. As we move forward in this society of ours, with this warfare that is going on for your soul. As in, is it left and right, Herbie? As in, is it Republican versus Democrats? Is it lefties versus righties? No. The two factions exist across all nations, across all races, across all sexes, because the actual sides of the war is those who value looking outside in versus those who see value in life as coming from inside out. As in, those who look to the community for their strength, the approval of those around them for strength, their ability to fit into society and have power in society as their strength, versus those who view the individual as the strength. Freedom and liberty of the individual as the strength. Freedom and liberty as in the freedom and liberty to go work and eat at Walgreens, Herbie? No, as in the freedom and liberty to know thyself, as in to interact with thyself and create a strong relationship with the self and have one trusted with a relationship with the self. How does one degrade a relationship with the self? Well, when one compromises actions that one would normally perform if only listening to the self in favor of approval from the community or the group around them, in which they feel like they must have approval or acceptance from. Every time we compromise what we normally would have done when listening to ourselves, or only to within, every time we compromise an action for ourselves in favor of pleasing another person, or gaining the approval of some other person, whether that be male or female, we strip ourselves of our good relationship with ourselves, where true strength may lie. The two sides of the war, composed of whether you believe the strength or the value of life comes from the outside in, the acceptance of other people, versus seeing the value and love of the life, of the world, of your life, coming from inside out, as in your relationship with yourself. Your logic for reasoning, your observation of truth, your ability to extract and create meaning? How might we gain this personal power back? How might we gain this personal power back that might have been stripped from us? By strengthening our relationship with the self. How does one strengthen a relationship with the self? By remembering to pretend that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And by seeing others as people who, in their mind's eye, are putting candles in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. A singular candle that's just flickering there. And they're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling it. And why might this create a stronger relationship with the self? Well, as the body breathes better by having the proper ideas in awareness, we create a stronger relationship with our body being able to overcome feelings of embarrassment, feelings of cowardice, feelings of inappropriate lust, feelings of inappropriate rage, which might cause people whom we love to drift further from us, and which we do not want them to, maybe. And so having a closer, stronger ability to regulate the body, to know the body, to have faith that the body will feel better through moments in which we feel weak, might literally create a stronger relationship for us. Might literally cause us to become less dependent on people's approval for us, which might literally cause us to have more freedom to go after what we want, which might literally cause us to be happier. We'll be right back after this very short break to get to the last portion of this show. We're talking about it's not your cashier's fault. As we switch from learning about ourselves through the outside world to learning about ourselves through the self, and then finally being able to understand the world now through the self, we see that it's not the cashier's fault. And start living inside out. We'll be right back after this short break. But only if you remember that the back 1/3 of your tongue wants to be vertical. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Here in Padawan. remembering to feel the front of our shins, to keep the front of our shins in our awareness all the time. And remember that we are trying to achieve muscular freedom. How? Through balance. Our bodies balance best when placing the weight onto the proper weight-bearing portions of the body, which tend to be the bones. As the bones do not have any nerve endings, so are perfectly designed to take hundreds and hundreds of pounds of a weight, and we can influence how much weight they can take by properly positioning them, properly allowing it, giving ourselves permission to feel balanced. Oh, remembering to feel the front of our shins and the tips of our tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And how does that feel for you as you integrate that with whatever you were doing today? With whatever you are doing today, I hope that you are able to challenge yourself to integrate. Whatever you are doing today, I challenge you to integrate the idea that there's a candle being placed in everyone's self-awareness in front of their lips. I challenge you to integrate the thought that in everyone's self-awareness there's a candle, flickering candle just in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. They're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling, whether you guys are just walking next to each other or speaking to one another face to face, or maybe just thinking about one another. I challenge you to remember that in their self-awareness, they're placing a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out, just as you are. And how does that feel for you as you observe your sense of self? And we are not thinking about exhaling, neither of you are thinking about inhaling, you're simply thinking about how there's a candle, or you're simply placing into your awareness, actually, that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Both of you. All of y'all. While remembering and keeping into your awareness that the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, and integrate that into whatever they are doing, whether it be walking or drawing or watching a movie or drinking water or working on art or a program. I challenge you to integrate into your awareness that into everyone's self-awareness they are each placing a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out, while they're remembering that in their awareness that the tips of their tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And how the back 1/3 of the tongues are vertical for every being, up and down, vertical, up and down, up and down. How does that feel for you? And how does that feel for you? There's a warfare out there. There is war out there for your soul, trying to strip us of our ability to have a relationship with ourselves. What might happen when we do not have a relationship with ourselves? Well, isn't it much harder to see that the cashier might have a version of the self in which one can relate to? They might be frustrating us, but can't we relate to them through needs? If we relate to them fully using this idea of living inside out to understand the world instead of living outside in to understand the world, as in living through understanding ourselves and our needs and our relationship with our ability to handle our needs to understand others, rather than using the way that others make us feel to understand ourselves and the world, which is never an accurate representation, because now you're trying to account not just for your own thoughts but other people's thoughts in which you do not have access to, and there may be multiple that you are trying to understand and consolidate all together to output one action from you. Impossible. Trying to live outside in to understand what you should feel and do about yourself. Impossible. There's too much stuff out there. However, living inside out first to understand yourself and then applying that to others to then understand them, maybe a little bit more possible. As we can understand ourselves and our relationship with our needs and our ability to meet our needs, to then understand others who also have needs and a relationship with being able to meet their needs. And if we are to truly live inside out, as in use ourselves as a projection onto others to then understand how they are feeling, we would then have to remember that to most people, we are nobody. We are a rando. Nobody knows us. If we are to truly empathize and live inside out, projecting that inside outness onto them to understand how they are feeling, to then understand how we should feel about how they made us feel. Not some vapid stuff just so that we can empathize with each other randomly, but so that we can never get angry again, so that we can just go about our day. We might be able to empathize with them, live inside out through them, to see that it's not personal the way they are acting, but rather they have needs just like us. They need to feel better. They need this paycheck, meaning they need you to wear this mask so you can just get your drink and then just go away. Because if you were to truly live inside out, they don't know who you are. They're not trying to do it personally. They just don't want to get fired. And yes, they might be in the wrong for being part of encroaching on liberties, but we all are doing that in some respect also. We can't all save the world in the same way at all the same time. We must all do what we can in our immediate vicinity. We must all do well in our jobs. Should we want to make a larger statement, we should not antagonize the ones who are just doing their jobs, but maybe ourselves, for not being able to have made a bigger impact in the first place. But how do we make a bigger impact now? By allowing our spirit to do what it needs to do. And how do we allow our spirit to do what it needs to do? By getting out of our own way, by getting out of our own body's way, so that we can allow our body to do what it knows it needs to do. Stand up for oneself, speak up for oneself, be proactive for one's goals, make that money so we're not dependent on other people's money, on other people's judgments of us. Live inside out so that we can make enough for ourselves so that we do not feel like dependent on the mood of the Starbucks barista. Do enough for ourselves so that no one can affect our mood better than we can. And so that we can achieve world peace through individual inner peace. And how do we do so? By strengthening this relationship with ourselves, with strengthening our relationship to be able to overcome any kind of hardship, such as embarrassment, lust, jealousy, laziness, overeating, lying, dependency on substances. And how do we strengthen this relationship so we can do all of the above? By remembering that into our awareness now, we remember that in everyone's self-awareness, there's a candle being placed in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. And they're not thinking about exhaling, or they're not thinking about inhaling. They're simply holding this controller properly in this simulation in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath. By placing into their awareness that there's a candle just flickering in front of their lips. And they're not thinking about exhaling, and they're not thinking about inhaling. It's just flickering in front of their lips. Why? So they can feel better, objectively, by aligning their body objectively towards the way the bodies were designed to, objectively. Otherwise, surgery and all that crap wouldn't work. Otherwise, yoga and all that crap wouldn't work. That amazing crap. So we can feel better objectively, so that we can speak up when we need to speak up, so that we can get that promotion when we know we should get that promotion, when we can create that idea that we know that we should build on, so that we can have the energy that we want to invest in ourselves instead of dumping it down the drain when we feel like we cannot overcome. So that we can keep friends and families closer together, so that we don't have to lose nobody no more. So that we can have better art again, so that we can have better movies again, so that we can have deeper love again. pretend that there's a candle in front of all of our lips in our mind's eyes that we're trying to not put out. So that we can prevent it from getting so bad that we have to get mad at the baristas. Let's pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that we're trying to not put out. Let's remember that the back 1/3 of the tongues are vertical, up and down, up and down. Let's remember that the tips of the tongues wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Let's remember that the weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. And the weight of the body is delivered down the rainbow arches. And that you do not sit on your legs. Let's place the weight of the body down the front of the spine and then keep the front of the shins into our awareness. So that we can communicate before our needs are so different that we cannot even understand each other anymore. We'll be back for the Truth Hurts Day tomorrow. It's a pivotal moment in history right now, as they always say. But there is a hole in the shape of your soul in society when we are not integrated with ourselves, when we are not performing with our utmost potential in life. And so don't we do our part in creating a hole in that ozone layer that is the safety of our future by not getting out of our own way and allowing ourselves to be as great as we possibly can. And how do we get out of our own way to allow ourselves to be as great as we possibly can? By literally getting out of our own way from breathing properly. Our body's always trying to breathe improperly. It's always trying to be so many things. Let's just be us so that we can breathe properly and get out of our own way and allow our body to do what it wants to do if it were breathing properly. Let's remember that there's a candle. Let's remember that in our self-awareness, we are now integrating the idea. I challenge you to integrate this idea that in everyone's self-awareness, there's a candle just flickering in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. And to get out of our own way, we remember that the tips of our tongues wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, and we notice how far forward of the body that feels. And you remember that the back 1/3 of the tongue is vertical, and you're not trying to put this candle out in front of your lips. It's just flickering there. You're not thinking about exhaling, you're not thinking about inhaling. You're simply trying to not put this candle out as it flickers in front of your lips, and you remember that the back 1/3 of the tongue is vertical, up and down. Leave your swallowing muscles alone, as the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. For every person, as we get out of our own way today. It's not your cashier's fault, and we know that because we all have needs. Let's live inside out. We'll be back for the Truth Hurts Days. Thank you guys so much for coming through. Any comments and chats are always so appreciated, and we will be addressing them in the beginning of the show, the middle of the show, and the end of the show. Thank you. Shout out Eric Taylor Maine for that comment on the last YouTube. Yesterday's episode for the True Love Tuesdays, which was oneness. He does miss some old intro. I miss the old intro, Herbie. I know, me too. We're gonna get a new one. It's coming through. You're right though, and I really appreciate that comment. Really helps us put our awareness on more of what we love about the show. There's so many directions that we can go that sometimes it creates stasis. So any kind of feedback is so friggin' appreciated, so loved. Love you guys. Appreciate you so much. Anybody coming through from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Discord, word of mouth, any kind of random link. Thank you so much for coming through. Hope that you have been feeling so good by holding this controller with all of us properly. Thank you for all the donations, likes, subscribes, follows. Whether that be on Twitch, DLive, or YouTube. We're gonna keep going with this, and if you felt so good from the inside out, go ahead and drop a follow. Go ahead and give us a like or a subscribe or an ice cream or whatever they call those bits, donations. If you felt so good from the inside out, if you felt good holding this controller with us today, I invite you to drop us a follow. And I invite you to come back over and over. Pal, go on forever. We'll see you tomorrow on the Truth Hurts Days. Feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. World peace through individual inner peace. Let's live inside out. We'll see you tomorrow. My name is Herbie, and this has been absolutely Pal Go On. See you tomorrow for the Truth Hurts Days. This has been Warfare Wednesday. It's not your cashier's fault. Always remember that the back 1/3 of the tongue is vertical. Up and down, up and down. Thank you.